We're now joined by NBA analyst Sarah Kustok. How you doing, Sarah?
Good to see you guys.
You're becoming a regular.
Oh, no.
Listen.
That can never. That's a call back from
happen again, Sarah?
I'm seeing LeBron. I'm calling the Cavs game Sunday, so I'm going to get the background. But I've been practicing.
Ketta, Brian, y'all get her booked even more. I was getting ready to say, welcome a regular to our show, but now we just increased your contract.
All right, I have to just real quick tell the audience.
Little backstory.
Yesterday, we showed LeBron embracing Joe Thomas. I foolishly mentioned to the audience that when CeCe was at a game in Miami, LeBron and CeCe made eye contact. In Cleveland, pardon me. Yes. LeBron and CeCe made eye contact, and that is what LeBron did to CeCe, the little bow with the legend.
You don't even know what you just did, Sarah.
Sarah, you are one of my favorites, but never again. Never, ever again.
Take a break. All right, let's talk some Kyrie Irving. He's missed. Stop calling me ma'am. You might as well call me Jenna. He's missed the last 4 games with a sore left knee, and now will reportedly be seeking a second opinion. But that doesn't mean the Celtics are done competing. Last night, Boston snapped the Thunder 6-game win streak with a 100-99 win. Celtics have gone 2-2 in Kyrie's recent absence. They're still firmly in second place in the East. Sarah, how have the Celtics been able to compete without Kyrie and basically a whole host of other players that are in and out with injuries?
I think this was said when the trade happened, and he talked about what is Danny Ainge's most valuable asset. Brad Stevens.
Wow, well said.
He's the guy. He is the reason this team is at the point they're at. And this goes back to the beginning of the season. 2-2 since Kyrie's been out, but one of those losses, a double overtime loss to Washington that they could have won. They lost by 3 points, I think, to Houston. In a lot of these losses and in close games and the wins, it's the system. It's the system they put in. It's the belief that Brad Stevens instills in them. And I think you see it if they are able to have a chance at the end of the game. It's a type of play calling. It's the out of timeouts, the way in which Brad Stevens is able to draw up sets, the execution of that. It starts at the defensive end for this team, how well they work together. But it doesn't matter what personnel you plug in. They understand where to be. They understand their roles. And it's similar to me. There's a lot of similarities now you're seeing with San Antonio, Greg Popovich, how he plugs in players. It doesn't matter who the personnel is. It's because of the system and how they run things and the understanding that starts during training camp. But I think that's where it all begins.
Listen, for me, you are preaching my gospel when it comes to Brad Stevens. I think aside from Greg Popovich, he is clearly the best coach in the NBA. And I think including Greg Popovich, when it comes to end-of-game, out-of-timeout situations, nobody puts their team in a better position to win. You then add to that, people talk about Danny Ainge a lot, but also I'm going to mention a name we've never said on the show, Mike Zarin, a member of that front office for a long time, who has an analytical background. Why does that matter? Think of the end of the game last night. They're down 2. This is something 75% of NBA teams simply don't understand. They still hold to this whole crazy axiom of at home you play for overtime, on the road you play for the... No. You got to think about it like this when it comes to shoot a 3 to win or play for overtime. Unless you have a wide open dunk or layup, the percentages are so clear you should go for the win. Because if overtime's a coin flip, let's just say overtime's a 50-50 proposition, even if you're getting a 60% shot from 2, you then have 60% of 50%. That's a 30% chance to win. So as long as a three-pointer is better than a 30% shot, that's the play to go with. The Celtics, I know the math is nerdy. Trust me, it's right. And the Celtics do that better than everyone. If they go for 2 last night, Jason Tatum, it looked like, had a layup. He had a layup to force overtime. He kicks it to an average three-point shooter. That is the right play. So many teams don't make that play. I feel like that has been instilled from the front office down to Stevens, down to the players. And that's how I feel like they've gotten 6 wins this year they had no business getting.
There are also things don't talk about that are important. Their basketball development. People always talk about the head coach. People don't talk about the systems. How, when you have young players, because your 2 stars are out. So how are the Celtics doing it? They must be developing these young players. You talked about Tatum. His development as a 20-year-old player without playing with superstars. It's hard to play in the NBA. Physically, it's taxing. Mentally, it's taxing. And let alone, you're playing with guys you weren't expecting to be playing with. So the head coach is doing a tremendous job. Danny Ainge has done a good job, but their basketball developed and their developing of young players and plugging them in, have them play well in critical situations. I mentioned this on the show a couple months ago. I think they're a couple years away from competing for a title. They still got a lot of picks. All right. Gordon Hayward still hadn't played 4 quarters of basketball with the Celtics. But I'm concerned about Kyrie's knee. Yeah. These other guys are developing. There was rumors about Kyrie's knee when he left Cleveland. You know, did he need a procedure? He potentially threatened to maybe sit out and have his knee worked on. So I'm not surprised that they're having problems with his knee, but I'm really surprised with him out, with Smart out, that they would still be able to play a game like they did last night and be able to steal a game away from one of the hottest teams in the NBA.
Well, and I watched Shane Larkin was a guy who was playing overseas last year. I watched him in Brooklyn the previous year for the entire season, not even close to the type of player that we're seeing. You got a guy like Greg Monroe, who Brad Stevens is utilizing in a way that best suits
anybody in the league could have had
strength.
Greg Monroe.
Anyone could have had him. How they're utilizing him. Even Jaylen Brown didn't play, of course, last season. But look at the development of him throughout the course of this season.
Terry Rozier.
Yes.
I mean,
Terry Rozier was a guy that was... people, I may have been one of them, poked fun at Danny Ainge for desperately. You can't include Terry Rozier in a trade. No. Terry Rozier's off limits. And we're like, what are you talking about, Terry Rozier? Terry Rozier's been good. Like, he's been the player that only the Celtics thought he could become. And the one other thing that, in addition to the player development, and this is one of the reasons why I think people fairly did have some questions about the Celtics come the postseason, but why they're so dangerous in the regular season is they seem to have a playoff intensity on defense every single night. Now, why would that make you question about the postseason? Is typically most teams are able to kick it up a notch in the postseason. I feel like the Celtics are operating almost on max capacity on that every night. That is a testament to, I believe, the coaching and the testament, of course, the players are credit for executing it, but the culture you instill of, this is how we're going to have to win games, guys. We're going to have to win games by competing every possession and making it hard to score. It is a pain to play Boston. It's not fun to go play Boston. Like, you know, you're going to have to work. It's going to be physical. Marcus Smart's going to be breathing right in your face. Like, it's just not an enjoyable team to go up against.
And they've done it in different ways with play. At first, you got guys like Marcus Smart or guys that are versatile that can guard multiple positions. Now they're doing it with play. They can go big. They can go small. They can play different ways and play at a different pace.
Let's bring it back to Kyrie Irving in a second. How worried are you about him? Because what you're reading is, well, he could be back the next game, or he could have surgery next year, or Danny Ainge said, or he could have surgery the year after that, or maybe even the year after that. So it seems like they're not exactly sure what his health is and where he's going to be.
I think Kyrie's going to be a little bit like Dwayne Wade, a guy who struggles with his lower extremities. Now, Dwayne Wade, he was able to get more years in the league before he got injured like Kyrie. Kyrie's already been hurt a couple times. He's already had procedures done to his knee. When he has the type of game that he has, you worry about his lower extremities. Isaiah Thomas, a guest friend of the show, he tells us about small guys. Man, their lower extremities, their legs and stuff, when they start to bother them, like that cuts through. You don't see small guys 6'2" and under. You don't see them playing 15 years in the NBA. Not as premier players. There's a reason why, because they get worn out. And Kyrie, I think this is something that we'll continually have to watch.
Yeah, and his game is predicated on his quickness. So to your point, not having that explosive nature may affect him.
And the discussion with Kyrie is whether or not they need to remove the screws he had put in his knee when he broke his kneecap in the NBA Finals the first year they went to the Finals in Cleveland. Here's what I am confident saying. I do not have sources on this, but it's my intuition. What the Celtics will not do is make the mistake with Kyrie that I bet at least they feel or the player feels they made with Isaiah Thomas, which is have a guy play through an injury when you can't win a championship. Like, with all due respect to the Celtics, they cannot win a title this year, even if Kyrie plays. So what you can't do is damage his ability to be healthy going into next year, damage his ability to be the player he should be because you force him to.
And their opinion might be a little different if they had Hayward playing.
Oh, absolutely.
But to me, this is why he's getting a second opinion.
Correct.
Because they saw no structural damage initially, and they said arrest. So to me, that's why you continue to check on it.
All right, Sarah, stick around. Coming up is it time to consider the Houston Rockets as the best team in the NBA. Next on First Things First.
We only had